afternoon, 8th grade healthcare science. Well, the idea today was that I would Zoom with all of you and teach a little bit and cover some things, but apparently my internet is very unstable at home. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I was kicked out of my ILT a couple of times, and then I was barely able to hold on to my fourth period class, which only has like a handful of students, so I figure there's probably no shot I'll be able to teach all like 28 of you guys on the Zoom. So I'm going to show you what we're going to get into today, and then you guys can watch this video, and once you're done with the video, you are done with class for the day. So if you click on Stop the Bleed module, it is a brand new module that I just made for you guys. This is the Stop the Bleed presentation. And we kind of started covering this last class. So we talked about the importance of learning about Stop the Bleed, where you can use it, what the goals are, taking the steps to stopping the bleed, adding pressure, packing, and then applying tourniquets, identifying the life-threatening bleed. And remember, your safety is your first priority. If you are, excuse me, I was yawning. If you are injured, you cannot help others, so please make sure the scene is safe. Put on gloves if you can. Make sure that you clean the blood off of you that you have on you. So the ABCs of bleeding control: alert 911, bleeding, and compress. So alert 911, we talked about calling 911, knowing where you are, knowing your address. If you don't, you could always put on the Wi-Fi locator on your phone, but that is a setting you would have to set up because it's not standard on every cell phone. When you call 911, make sure you follow the operator's directions. Next, you're going to find the bleeding, and again, we talked about how these pictures of blood are not necessarily actual blood. Now, I do have my Stop the Bleed models assembled and ready to go at school. I have 10 of them ready to go. So once we get back into school, I would like to start practicing packing the wound with you guys. I will have to send home today. I was going to send home the permission slips, which would give you Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday to bring them in. But then we had severe weather, and so we are not in school. So I will get those to you guys on Monday. First thing you got to do is find the source of the bleeding. Look for continuous bleeding, large volume of bleeding, and then pooling of blood. And then just know that the clothing may be hiding the bleeding, so you are going to have to cut that off. Obviously, if you have scissors, that's probably going to be the easiest thing to use, but use to what you have at your disposal. Excuse me. Whew, I need some coffee in my body. All right, so bleeding. There's arms, which is arms and legs, which is highlighted in blue. Neck, armpits, and groin, which are green. And then body, which is red. All right, next up, compress. You want to make sure that you put pressure on the wound. We talked about how you can use clothing, towels, paper towels, things that you have at your disposal. This person used their lab coat. You're going to apply directly to the wound, focus directly over the location of the bleeding, and use just enough gauze or clothing or whatever to cover the injury. If pressure stops the bleeding, then you have to keep that bleeding on until help arrives. Excuse me. All righty. Now, if you look here, here's the ABCs of bleeding control, and I'm actually going to go to the next slide because I actually have that video. I'll play it for you. So this is a demonstration of putting pressure. Okay, so you can see she has the wound right here. And of course, that shirt says, "This shirt can save a life." And as you can see, she's putting just enough of the shirt to cover over the packing, and then she puts direct pressure. Notice she puts her chest directly over her hands, so that way she can squish down and really apply firm pressure. Okay, so let's watch that again. Okay, so there's the wound, and I'm going to pause this real quick. One thing I absolutely cannot stand seeing in this is she's not wearing gloves, but I'm going to keep that to myself. Take that t-shirt, hands on there, and apply direct, firm pressure. Okay? So now we will go back. And we were currently on compress. Okay, now for large wounds or superficial sorry, for large wounds, the pressure is not going to be good enough. So if the wound is very, very deep, you can try to put pressure, but what's going to happen is that blood is just going to soak on through whatever cloth or gauze you have over top of it. So if the bleeding is from a deep wound, you're going to pack the gauze tightly into the wound until it stops bleeding, and then you're going to also apply pressure. So if you look here, you can see how they are actually packing the gauze into the wound, not just putting the gauze over top of it. So I'm going to go to the next 2 slides over because that is actually where we're going to see that demonstration. And I'm actually going to take this over to YouTube. Okay, so they use something called QuikClot. It is a packing gauze that also allows a wound to clot. So here is the second wound. This one, you can see the circle. It's like a puncture wound or like a single entry wound. This looks more like a knife wound to me, or a laceration. So they're taking the QuikClot and they are now putting it inside of the wound. Okay, so they do a 2-hand pack, and you can see one hand brings the gauze over while the other hand packs it. Now, be careful where you put your QuikClot on the ground. Obviously, if it's rainy, if it could get saturated with another substance, you don't want that. So make sure it is a dry, clean area that you're putting this down on. And we'll continue watching her pack the wound. There we go. And you can see how she does this quickly and efficiently, passing from one to the other. Again, I'm always going to pick on the fact that she's not wearing gloves. And then once the wound is completely packed, there's no more space to put any more of the gauze. She's then going to overlay the rest of the gauze on top and apply that firm pressure. Now again, she stops holding the pressure because this is a demonstration. In real life, you would need to continue holding the pressure until help arrived. Okay? Alrighty, that's actually where we're going to stop today because realistically speaking, I would like to demonstrate it in front of you on a live model so you guys actually have a very quick class today. If we were in class, I would go ahead and demonstrate all of these things for you, but since we're not in class, I'm going to go ahead and end this here.